This week on The Startup Life.
Almost playing a devil advocate role. Like I like just being outrageous. I like being able to showcase that because I feel like the life is too short to just always play it safe.
All right, Startup Nation. So let's take flight with Paul Lattibeaudaire Jr. and Emilio Porter of the Educated Hustle podcast. The Startup Life begins now.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Hey, Startup Nation. Do you enjoy the startup life? Now you can let the world know with gear from the show. Choose from the label yourself, make your own luck, and Making Money t-shirts to tell your story of your path of entrepreneurship. Click the link in the show notes to purchase. All right, Startup Nation. So I hope you're ready to receive some value today. We have a really special guest on today. We got Paul and Emilio of the Educated Hustle podcast. What's going on, fellas?
Hey, how's it going?
All right. Are you guys ready to pour some knowledge in the Startup Nation today?
Let's do it. Hopefully we can bring some impact to your listeners.
Hopefully we can tip the cup over.
For sure. No worries. All right, so let's get started. So tell me this. What started you guys' podcast? Basically, what's your path to entrepreneurship?
So Educated Hustle started out in 2016, May 15th, if we want to be real exact. The need of it was me and Paul both went to University of Central Florida, repping Orlando, Florida. We joined a fraternity called AK Psi, and it's a business fraternity. And the cool thing about it is we have a lot of amazing brothers who have done their own endeavors and ventures, such as their own startups, their own websites, their own brands, their own designs. And they would always promote on Facebook and Instagram, but they would only basically reach like their circle of friends.
For sure.
And me and Paul always thought like, these guys have really great ideas, really good stuff. Like they need to have a bigger base. And we wanted to make a podcast to kind of highlight that. And the mission of it was like, we really want to have passionate people come onto our show and demonstrate why that not only do they have this passion, but like what led them to really become an entrepreneur. Ironically, it was a couple episodes before we actually interviewed our first AK Side brother because we wanted to start off with strangers. But the cool thing about it is really led us on an amazing adventure because we've interviewed so many different entrepreneurs of different types and different backgrounds, and we've learned a lot. And we're really proud to have a podcast that basically showcase like people who, everyone knows the Gary V's,
right?
The Steve Jobs, all those big names, but we can interview people who are more relatable, someone that you could like see yourself working with or meet down the street. So it's cool that we're able to bring those people to the front and showcase who they are with our podcast. And that's basically what started Educate Us a Dream, just making sure that we give shine to those who aren't necessarily in the news or on TV.
Yeah, and then I want to add a little bit. For me, I listen to like at minimum 3-4 podcasts a day. So I'm like super into podcasting, and I just wanted to have a platform to be able to talk to people and get their ideas, because the art of conversation is just always super stimulating for me. And to be able to create my own platform with my best friend is just like kind of like, it's not even work. You know what I'm saying? When we do our interviews, it's very conversational. It flows real easy. And that's kind of something that we had in college. You would meet people and host different events, and the flow would be so easy and conversational that it's only made sense to start a podcast.
So you guys both went to UCF, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'll try not to hold it against you since you beat my Tigers earlier or a few months back.
National champions don't hold that.
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right. National champions UCF Knights. My apologies. You're absolutely right. Which I had no issue, by the way. Why not? You're 13-0. Why not? So
exactly.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So let me ask you this, guys. What was your first business idea and what did you do with it? Or is this the first business idea?
I think so. For me, I'll kind of harp back to like some middle school days, like selling candy in the middle of class. I think that kind of sparked the entrepreneurial mindset for me, just kind of seeing other kids make money off of little things like candy or school supplies or things like that. And I was like, you know what? I need to kind of start my hustle by doing little things like that. So that kind of sparked my interest in the business. But then fast forward a few years later, starting Educate Hustle podcast is kind of like the official start of my entrepreneurship start to stardom. So also I do my own real estate business as right now. I'm in the process of flipping my first house. So learning a lot through that is definitely helping me become an entrepreneur, and all the different struggles of, finding the property, fixing it, getting the right cost, hiring, firing contractors. So definitely learning the grind. But, without Educate Hustle, I don't think I would have been able to start my real estate business, because, having the confidence to start that led to the confidence of starting my own real estate business.
Big business, Paul. He can't, make sure you stay him on. I know for me personally, Educate Hustle is probably like the only venture I've been in where I really feel committed to it. I don't have I don't want to say I don't have the gene to be an entrepreneur, because my family has entrepreneurs in it. There's a lot of people in my family who are doing a lot of things. I guess I haven't found something outside Educate Hustle that I want to put my passion towards. But I think, when this takes off, I'll probably have a bigger idea. And it's really one of those things where, ironically, like, even though I don't have that fire for another business right now, I'm surrounded by people who want to be in business. I mean, my best friend told you the real estate game. She's trying to get that on lock. My girlfriend is trying to start up her own thing where she's going to be basically a digital specialist liaison, trying to get other small business up. So it's like, with my parents having their own real estate company, I'm surrounded by business in the family. So, I feel like one day I'll get there. But Educate Hustle right now is the forefront. I think the thing about it is, I think that me and Paul really do well talking to people, and we're really able to get that charisma and energy, out of them that they normally think of. I have a lot of people who hate talking, don't see themselves doing well in interviews, and they come on our show and they're like, oh my God, that was the funnest 45, 50 minutes of my life. Like, I didn't even know I was being interviewed. So awesome. I think we have a knack for that, and, definitely want to see how we can leeway down to become something bigger than what we are.
Now, Emilio, you talk about, other members of your family being entrepreneurs and this, that, and the other. Do you ever pick their brain, or do they ever put pressure on you to kind of do other entrepreneurial ventures or anything like that?
No, not really. I have a very strong personality, so
fair enough.
They kind of know like what I'll do, what I don't do. My girlfriend all the time tries to be like, "Why? When you gonna stop playing? Let's get in this business together. Let's get this business together." But
gotcha.
For me, I know that if I don't have the passion or my heart's into it, I won't be able to do it well. And until I find something that like makes me want to have that passion and heart, I don't want to do it, because I know I won't be committed to it. Educate Hustle works because I'm with my best friend. Like, anytime I get to be with my best friend and we're doing something together, working towards something together, it's a fun time. It's going to be worthwhile. But for me, just to say I want to do something from the bottom of my heart, I don't have that mindset. I'm a very simple person. As long as I have my Netflix, my Xbox, gotcha. A roof over my head, I'll be good to go. So.
Good. Understood. Thank you for sharing that, man. I appreciate it. Let me ask you this, and I know you guys like mentioning the Gary V's and this, that, and the other, but who or what inspires you guys as entrepreneurs, and why?
I think for me, just the being in the corporate culture for so long, it inspires me to be an entrepreneur, because it allows me to think more freely. And what I mean by that is, you go to a meeting in the corporate lifestyle, and it's kind of limited to the topics that we're discussing. We're talking about, how are you going to hit your numbers? How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? And there's always somebody that's giving you a goal to go and achieve. Well, for me, I've always been the type of person to kind of set my own goals. And then once I achieve those goals, I adjust it and, strive for something else. So it allows me to be a little bit more creative and think freely, and not have someone kind of dictate what you need to do on, with the hours that you have. So, being an entrepreneur is all about the lifestyle, just living on your own terms, making your own decisions, and living and thinking and learning off those decisions. I think, me working in corporate so long, and I'm still in the corporate job, but,
gotcha.
I just want to speak open and honestly, it's so much more challenging as an entrepreneur, because you can make mistakes and they really affect, how your business develops. And, no one's going to tell you how to adjust. It's really all about being creative and thinking about how to get out that hole, or how to make that next sale, or how to really find a better deal on your next property. So I definitely like the challenge of being on your own, making your own decisions, and living with the consequences, whether they be good or bad.
I know for me, I'm hit you with two, and they could be cliche depending on who you asking. But the first one's going to be my dad.
Okay.
My dad worked as a police sergeant for the Miami dayed policemen for a number of years, and he was actually able to retire before the age of 60. He spends all day golfing.
Gotcha.
He has his own real estate business I alluded to earlier, and the thing with him is he's always been quiet with his business. He's never kind of like talked about or bragged about. He's just always been really quiet, efficient, and able to get the job done. I'm not shy to say he was able to amass a good amount of money before he retired and is able to live a relatively carefree life to an extent. So his motivation, his movement, his motivation always inspired me because it makes me want to do that. And I feel like I want to step into, follow the steps of my father and really become like successful in his eyes, and of course, just follow those footsteps. So he's my first one. The second one is going to be post-presidency Barack Obama. I say that because post-presidency Barack Obama, if you were able to keep up with him, because he's very low-key, but every time he does do something, you get the sense that he's doing it because he wants to do it. Like he's having fun. I know in those 8 years, you can't have as much fun because you got so much stuff, coming at you, and everyone has their own opinion on him. I think he was amazing, but I think what he's doing now is even amazing because everything he does now, he's doing it because it's his move. It's no longer he's been advised or he has to do it. It's what he wants to do. And that's the cool thing about him is like, I feel like when you become an entrepreneur, you have to have that sense of, I want to do this because I put my heart and soul into vision and passion, not because I have to do it. So I think he's leading a very great example of what to expect when it comes to entrepreneur game.
Absolutely. And I actually share your sentiment as well. Thank you for sharing that. Let me ask you this, guys. What do you wish you would have known before you started Educated Hustle?
I think me and my co-host might think along the same lines, but we definitely could have spent a little bit more time creating that buzz, that following, just making sure that people were more aware of that we were coming along with the podcast.
Gotcha.
Because we definitely researched, a lot about starting the podcast, and a lot of research showed that, you definitely have to create that buzz and that marketing beforehand to have people kind of waiting there, and also rating your podcast and doing all those little things. I think those are things that we do a little bit better now, getting people to kind of, give us a little bit more feedback, rate and review the show. But I think if we would have had that kind of gear up time beforehand, it would have, accelerated our growth a little bit quicker. But, I think everything happens for a reason, and I think we're definitely on the right track right now.
Yeah, definitely along with what Paul said. I think another thing is obviously how hard it's going to be, because you really underestimate how hard it's going to be. But I think the main thing is getting guests. Like, we always knew we had to get guests, but it's especially now, it's so much of like, you have to really be on the lookout and grind to get guests, because you have an expectation that when people listen to your podcast, they expect a certain thing, and you can't go too far off. Funny story, when we first started, we actually had an interview with someone who was like, big time for us. And she was so busy, she was like, oh, I'll do an interview with you guys in September. We started out in May, and we probably may have had 6 episodes to our name. So it's like, how are we going to make it to September and be able to actually get this girl in while still having the podcast actually going? And it really challenged us to make sure that we filled in the time slot, was able to actually still be, a thing when her interview came, and we were able to do it. But that's just one of the things I think that I wish we had known more about, is like how to get more guests, because obviously, I feel like, and I don't know if maybe you can relate to this, but you hit like a good steam and then it's a little bit slow down, as we're like, okay, let me sit back and really research a thing, like, who can I get on the show?
Absolutely. I definitely know what you're talking about. And also, it's one of those things. It wasn't until I started the startup life where, how you look at watch like talk shows and how people say like, I've been trying to get on the show for months, or we've been trying to link up and do a project together for months. And before I became an entrepreneur, it's like, what does that even mean? You guys have tons of money, just link up. But it wasn't until I started, really diving into our business and understood how important time is, to where like, okay, now I understand where like people's schedules really do have issues with linking up. So no, I definitely get what you're saying about as far as like guests and stuff like that, for sure. Thank you for sharing that. Let me ask you guys this. What's the worst boss, or what did you learn from the worst boss you've ever had?
Oh man. I got fired from my worst boss. Don't come in when you, no, she was, I used to work, I don't know if they have them up where you're at, but Wawa's, I know they're big in Florida and Philly, but it's basically like a gas station that's really known for selling their hoagies. I had a woman her name I'll leave out, but she was just known as being she's a good boss, but she works too hard. And from what I learned from her was like, it's all right to fail if you show that you didn't try to fail. I guess to make it a little bit more, if you work hard, even if you fail, you can still rest that you worked hard. And, the job that I had, I was a inventory and merchandise manager, and it just wasn't a good fit. I went to college for so many years, and I had been in marketing, and I was coming out and basically becoming a manager for a retail chain, and it just wasn't something that I was equipped for. And, I tried my hardest because I don't ever believe in quitting. I don't believe in, showing up to work and not giving your all, but it just wasn't a good fit. And, I had to, was let go. But the good part about it is, it leads you on a trip to where you kind of can align and bring yourself back to what you should be doing. So, but from her, I learned that, the thing that made the fire less hard is where she sat me down and said, "Hey, I know you've been trying. Like, I know you've been working hard and trying, but it just ain't working." So,
gotcha.
It's never good being fired, but it's nice to be able to end on a little thing like that,
For sure.
Yeah, and just for me, back in college, I used to work as a resident assistant, and I had a bevy of bosses, but one in particular, he just didn't keep people accountable. I know for me, I'm a self-starter, I'm a go-getter, so I'm able to do things on my own without much oversight. But to look at my peers, and they didn't have, as much dedication as me. They would show up late. It looked like there was no discipline being handed out. And, as a boss, as a person that's expected to lead people, you have to hold your people accountable. And I see that all the time in even in work today, different groups, different bosses, they don't hold their people accountable. And I think that's gonna, if you're a boss, that's the number one thing you have to have, because you, as an employee, you can kind of sense when your leader isn't capable, and you kind of start thinking about all the different things you can get away with. And that it started to get like that in college, but that's what I learned about them. I just kind of took, if I ever got into that position where I was managing people and had somebody looking up to me, I'm going to make sure I keep them accountable and know that they can't always be, they can't look at me and say, well, he didn't let me know what my goal was, or he didn't tell me the expectations ahead of time so that I could achieve my goals. I definitely want to hold my people accountable when that opportunity comes.
For sure. We want to hold them accountable and set them up for success, for sure.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me ask you guys this, because like we live, when we hear about managers and bosses and leaders, oftentimes people feel like they have to be like super tough or a hard ass or whatever when it comes to being a boss. Guys, where do you think that comes from?
I think that just comes from, I think in society, especially when you look at, movies, entertainment, leaders are always the people who have to make the tough calls. They have to lead the chain. To bring up an example, I think everyone's seen at least an episode of The Walking Dead. We look at Rick Grimes. Rick Grimes is someone, he makes the tough decisions. He's not like, an infallible person, but he's able to do what has to be done. He's the one that, I don't care if I'm the villain, you're going to hate me. Like, I'm going to do this to make sure that we all survive. And I feel like that correlates to how we view our managers. Like, we feel like, okay, if you're in charge, you got to be the person that's got to hold the standard, hold the ship right. And so that our vision of that is someone who has the authority and the capability to make those hard choices and command. But I mean, like you alluded to, I think leadership comes in many different forms. I think for me as a leader, I want to be someone to where my employees respect me, but they know that they can also reach out and talk to me. I'm not trying to put, I'm not going to say the company's needs, but just be selfish with my needs before them, because I feel like in order to connect with your employees and make sure that they work hard, they have to know that, it's a common cause you guys are sharing. I think if you're a manager and you showcase, okay, not only do I work hard at what I'm doing, but I'm also here for you, you can win a lot more people than just being the guy that comes in and commands everybody's. But, there's some people who really respond to that. You look at military, army people, that's what they respond to. They need to be told what to do. They don't want to hear that, let me hold your hand and talk about my weekend. They want to like, okay, you want me here when you want me here and all of that. So it really all depends, but I really think it just comes from our nature of seeing stuff in TV and entertainment where leaders are these hard, foregoing, lonely people who are able to showcase like, hey, when it comes to getting our hands dirty, we're not afraid to.
Understood.
Yeah, I agree with that premise as well. Just I think people, another thing that people like to do as well is complain about their boss and kind of get into that conversation that's a little toxic for the workplace where they come in, they already have the bad attitude. So it's like the person who's above them they're a little bit envious of them. So I think it kind of works both ways on the employee level and the boss level too.
For sure. I just kind of wanted to get your guys' take on that. It's one of those things where in a lot of the work that we do in the school systems or whatever here in Memphis, a lot of times we run into, leaders, administrators, principals who feel like they have to be like the hard ass in order to get people up and at them, if you will. And so I just want to get you guys' take. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So when it comes to, advertising and marketing, educated hustle, or, your real estate ventures that you got going on, how do you market or advertise it? Social media, word of mouth, what works best?
I think for a podcast, social media definitely works the best, especially when you're trying to get in contact with so many people. And nowadays, a lot of people hear about their news and their what they listen to or what other people are doing via social media. There's not much newspaper, radio for our generation, at least. So social media is definitely something that we use all the time, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I think you definitely got to have your hand in social media to get the word out there nowadays.
For sure.
Yeah, and to echo him, I'll narrow it down. Twitter. There's not a podcast I haven't listened to that hasn't been on Twitter that's got me interested in it. I think Twitter is right now for me the mecca of social media because you always will have an audience. I feel like Facebook is your family and friends, and your family and friends they love you, they cool with them, but they're not gonna go out their way to do something for the most time. But I feel like on Twitter, like if you have something and people see it, you'll get a lot of people that just come through and be like, "Let me check this out." I think a lot of our successes come from having a Twitter page, and we're able to talk to people, we're able to showcase. I know we've gotten a lot of guests on Twitter because you have that easy access to talk to somebody. Just send them a tweet, send them a DM or whatever. Right. So I really feel like as a podcast, you have to have a strong Twitter presence. And for me, like I said, if you're not on Twitter, I really don't listen to your show. And
Gotcha.
I mean, I don't want to be blunt about it.
No, fair enough. I got you. Fair enough. Appreciate your candor on that one. Let me ask you guys this. What did you learn from your biggest failure?
That's a tough one. I think for me, what I learned from my biggest failure is that it's just like starting my real estate venture. I put a lot of money up in the front end on education and kind of trying to get right. And I think I overspent, on a couple of things. But I think from my biggest failure that I learned as far as all those startup costs that I accrued was trying to get more advice from people who have done it before. I think for me, I like to. I'm a self starter, like I said in the beginning, but I'm also kind of stubborn at times when it comes to advice, and I try to shake that off by talking to more people. Doing this podcast kind of helps as well. Just kind of getting advice from people who have already been there in the past. So definitely reaching out to more people who have done real estate. I talked to a couple people here and there about their approach to real estate, how they started, what their first deal was like, and just kind of networking a little bit more instead of kind of going in head first and seeing what happens. That's kind of what I learned from with my real estate business.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just learning to take more advice, just being more open with myself. I think a lot of times we get in our head that at the end of the day, we know what's best, and that's not always the case. We can view a situation one way, but we'll have people out in our circle who view it an entirely different way, and you have to be able to embrace that viewpoint and feedback, because I think in our minds we think we're something, I'll give you an example. Like I always think like, oh man, I'm putting on a little bit of weight, man. I gotta shape up. I need to go to the gym a little bit. But I'll talk to my girlfriend. She's like, "What's wrong? You're beautiful. You're handsome. I love you the way you are." So, it's easy to kind of get in your head that maybe I gotta do this, maybe I have to do that. But you have to listen to people around you and really take that advice and heed that movement. Obviously, you want to do it with people that you trust. Don't just listen to anybody. But I think that's the best thing with failure is you can reflect and kind of hear from people around you, because they'll tell you things that you did not necessarily know. I was in a relationship once, and I saw my viewpoint as one particular thing, but I remember I talking to Paul actually about it, and he's like, I noticed that when you guys, whenever you talk about her, you guys are always arguing or mad at each other, and you're not a mad dude. And it never clicked to me like that makes so much sense, So you have to really take that advice and take that perceptive and insight from people around you, because you'll be able to rebound a lot quicker rather than try and retreat within yourself and try and find a lesson that way. I think just hearing other people and reflecting is the best thing I learned from failure.
For sure. Let me ask you guys this real quick. It's kind of a follow-up. So, Emilio, you talked about taking advice from other people, this, that, and the other, right? And that's great advice. But how do you feel when somebody who doesn't or has never done what you do gives you advice? So, for example, like somebody who gives you advice about your podcast and they've never had a podcast or something like that, right?
I give him the stink eye. No, I mean, I'm a person that's given advice with stuff that I don't have the most direct experience with. I think you just think about, okay, how valid is it? Because I think with advice, we get caught up like, oh, okay, I've known Paul for all these years. If he gives me advice, I have to listen to it over someone I met just a minute ago. But it's like that dude you met a minute ago could be amazing in your area, and he knows more than what Paul would know. So I think with those things, you have to kind of figure out, okay, where's it coming from? It doesn't make sense. If it makes sense, to take it, but if it doesn't, then not to be offensive, but you'll hear it out and you don't use it. But I think as long as you can judge if it makes sense to actually go on to and utilize, that you're in a good place. It's when you start just taking things at face value and not putting dot to it when it comes to advice. That's when you get in trouble.
For sure.
And I think it's funny you mentioned that, because we have a mutual friend who listens to our podcast, and he kind of gives us feedback on how we're doing. And he kind of talked to us a little bit about, some of the styles, some of the things that he's noticed when he listens to the show. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that he noticed about me is that sometimes I ask weird questions, or I don't ask the question correctly, or my delivery is a little bit off. Gotcha. My first thing is to kind of attack, because I don't know, that's just how in the Black culture, you kind of want to hit them back with the insult. But
what you mean that'll be
exactly right, exactly. But at the same time, once I kind of got over that little thing, I kind of thought about it. Maybe I can change my approach to the question. Maybe I can kind of lead into it a little bit better. So it's definitely something that I try to do a little bit more often. People that give you that unsolicited advice. Even though at first you kind of think it's a little off-putting, but maybe it's coming from a place of good, I think, because
Understood.
They're trying to help you out and help you grow.
Absolutely. And Startup Nation, what he just said is very important. A lot of times when people give us advice, it really does come from a place of good intentions, not necessarily just trying to, make you look crazy or something like that. So thank you for sharing that. I really do appreciate that. So guys, entrepreneurs consider themselves lifelong learners, always engaged in constant professional development. What does that mean to you, and what are you learning now?
I think for me, I kind of learned a little bit about myself is sometimes I'm not the most disciplined. So I'm starting to do this thing where I read a little bit more. I read at least 10 pages a day. Okay. And the first book that I picked up this year was a book called The Miracle Morning. Okay. And it's helping me keep myself accountable as far as just having my day a little bit more detailed. A lot of the people who are productive, they start their day like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. So that's the kind of thing that I'm trying to test out right now is how many days in a row can I wake up at 5 a.m.? All right. And then once I hit that, how many days can I wake up and work out at 5 a.m.? For sure. And then kind of create that routine that will help me become a little bit more disciplined. So that's what I'm trying to learn now is, be a little bit more structured in my approach, schedule things out, and then write things down a little bit more often so that you can visualize you achieving that goal rather than think it and then forget about it later on in the day.
Understood.
Yeah, and I'm into it too once again. I love twos, I guess. For me, the first thing is definitely just being more open with people. When I was in school, except in college, I guess. I was not a really big talker. I didn't really open up to a lot of people. I didn't talk to a lot of people. If you weren't in my close circle, I didn't really engage. And I really feel like I missed out on a lot of opportunities to really get close and really build those connections. So I know for me, I have a new job I started, and I'm with 11 peers. Like, I'm trying my best to be a voice in that circle, because I feel like when people know who you are and they can see that you open up to them, you build a better camaraderie and a better sense of, okay, I like working with this person. I'm gonna try and help them out whenever they need help. So I think that's one of the things that is tough when it gets to the atmosphere where you have a lot of people around you. Some people don't want to be open and share. They don't want to be at the vocal point. Well, I'm trying to assert myself and be more of that vocal, be more of a leader and be recognized. And it's cool when I have people say like, oh man, I think you're like the smartest person in the class. I'm like, what? Like, all because I just talk more. So, I mean, that's the first thing. The second thing is I had a daughter. She's just turned 1 year old.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you. So I'm learning, through like seeing the world through her eyes. Cause with children, everything is such a brand new experience, and they really do take these things that you take for granted and make it seem like a magical experience. So I'm trying to see through her eyes, and then, also check myself, because I'm realizing this is who I'm shaping. Some person I'm helping shape become an adult.
Absolutely.
So, you evaluate like everything you're doing, and you want to make sure that you're on the right path, and you check yourself like, okay, like what do I not want to do around, like what I got to look out for. So those are two things I'm doing to really learn every day and try and be a better person.
But thank you for sharing that. Let me ask you guys this. Some say, and you both are entrepreneurs, but also college educated. So I'm actually curious about how you answer this one. Some say entrepreneurs need some type of form of education, networking, this, that, and the other in order to be successful. But some say all you need is idea and a work ethic. So idea and work ethic. So where do you guys stand on that spectrum?
I know for me, I think being college educated helps out a lot. And
okay.
I'll say this for the simple fact of the network you get. I know Paul can attest, like, because we went to college, we have a much bigger network than we would have had without it. I think education is one part of it. And if you look at it through just educational means, it's easy to dismiss. But the real goal of college, what you go for 4 years, what you pay that tuition for, is to build that network and have that set of associates that no matter what you're doing, you have people out there that are bigger than just your hometown.
Understood.
And then, like I said, we built this podcast because of people that we met in college. So if we had never went to college, there's a chance that educated hustle would not be hustling today. So
I hear that.
Don't want to understate it, but at the same time say, the truth behind it. But that's what I'm a firm believer of. I think, like, yes, college is expensive. It's daunting. It's a long 4 years. But if you go out there and you set yourself up by making these networks, you meet all these people, you really are doing well for yourself. Because, I look at Gary Vee. Gary Vee was friends with the guys who made Uber. And he remembers when Uber was nothing. Like, they asked him to invest. And he's like, oh, we're cool and all, but I'm not going to invest in Uber. And now Uber got so big, he's like, I should invest in Uber. And, Gary Vee's successful, immensely successful. So your network and people you have access to, do not undervalue it. It means a lot. It could be the difference between you having that rough first year and maybe having a bigger first year than what you initially thought.
I hear that.
Yeah, I agree with my co-host. I definitely stand more on the spectrum where you need a formal education. Now, and I like the way you word it as formal education, because I think education comes in many forms. You can either go to college, you can pick up some books and read, you can talk to people and learn from them. But I definitely feel like all the people who kind of practice their craft definitely have to study the craft in order to launch their product, make their product better, make their idea better. I think you can grind hard and you can work hard, but you need to also work on the education process and really develop that sense of knowing your industry in and out, so that when you are ready to launch, or that when your business is ready to take off, you'll be knowledgeable and you'll be able to expand.
Let me ask you this, last question before we go to break. What does the average day look like for both of you guys?
Well, like I said, now, being on the Miracle Morning program, I'm waking up anywhere between 5 and 6 a.m.
Okay.
I start my day off. The first 30 minutes of my day, I'm reading. So the next book I'm reading right now is The Color of Law. And that's kind of helping me broaden the legal perspective on, why things are the way they are as far as segregation goes. I'm trying to broaden my knowledge as far as just topics and being more knowledgeable. Then I work out. I do about a 30-minute workout, and the whole point of that is just to kind of get your mind rolling, get your day out to a good start, get the endorphins flowing, and then right after that, take a shower and then jump into some emails for work. Also follow up on my flip project, and then kind of go from there as far as who setting up meetings or taking phone calls throughout the day, and then when I come home at night, I kind of like to relax, take an hour or so to just kind of take the day in, think about what you did, what you didn't do, and move on from that. But I kind of want to build a little bit more structure and later in the day. But I definitely think that getting my mornings off and starting on the right foot is really helping me become a little bit more organized.
Spoiler alert: my day is not as relaxing and detailed as Paul put it. I'm here too, so I guess I wake up around 6:20, 6:30. I then go to my job like around 7. I'm out at 5. When I get home, I have to pick up my daughter up. So
Gotcha.
Usually whatever she wants to do is what I have to do when we get home.
Fair enough.
If she's taking a nap, I'll try and like I said, I like to play video games when I can, watch Netflix. I try to catch up on shows, and then at that point usually do a combination of those until it's time to go to bed. If I'm in bed, I'll try to read something. Now, I'm not a big nonfiction reader. I love fiction. Fiction is just like, that's what I read. And I have a terrible habit of starting so many books and never finishing them. So it's funny because everything I do in life, like Netflix, I watch a lot of shows, don't finish them. I'll just stop somewhere. So I'm weird that way. I don't know why, but
Gotcha.
Try to end it on that and then prepare for the next day.
Understood. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. How you guys like being on the Startup Life so far?
It's great, man. I think you definitely got your craft down. It's been amazing. The questions you asked has allowed me to really think about myself and my business.
Yeah, I really just I said earlier, like, we really enjoy being interviewed. It's very, very rare that we get the mics kind of showcased on us, and it's cool that you have these questions that flow together, and I really feel like we're giving you some good answers, some good material, and of course, it's all organic, freshly squeezed right from mama's backyard,
Absolutely. So I hope you're getting great value from Paul and Emilio's story, but we got to pay some bills. Once again, my name is Dominic Lawson, and you're listening to The Startup Life. Memphis, are you ready to level up? Join me May 5th as I lead the Al Academy's Entrepreneurship 101 workshop. Together, we will create your elevator pitch, work on problem-solving techniques, and so much more to get your path of entrepreneurship off to a great start. All attendees will take home an entrepreneurship startup kit, coupons for additional resources, and a chance to win mentoring sessions with some of Memphis's top entrepreneurial minds. So join us May 5th at Union Center, 10th floor classroom at 1331 Union Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee, 38104. Can't wait to see you there. Check out the link in the show notes. All right, Startup Nation, so let's continue. So Paul and Emilio, what was the best piece of advice you've ever gotten, and what was the worst piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Oh, man. That is deep. Oh, man. I think the best piece of advice I've ever gotten was just be yourself. I couldn't tell you who told it to me, so we'll just go off that. But I think that really is a great piece of advice, because I think it's so hard to get caught up on what you think you should be and how you think you should be seen, that you lose sight of what you really are. And I think if you're always true to yourself, you're going to have a lot more success than not being true at all. So that's probably the best advice. The worst advice, I think the worst advice, and I don't think it was ever framed as advice, but it's like, as men here, we know that when we have our friends, we're loyal to our boys. We're loyal to them. They do something wrong, we stand for them. Unless it's something drastically out the box, we'll be there for them. I think that's a mindset that is dangerous to have, because I think a lot of times, sometimes your friends don't have the best interests and hearts of you. And when you become to a standard where you have to feel like, because, you know, we're friends, that I automatically have to side with you, that blind loyalty can sometimes come back to bite you. So the best advice I would have is like, just because you're cool with someone, make sure that the way that they move and the way that they operate, they still have time to be genuine to who you are, and you're not just doing like a selfish interest for their own causes. So that's probably the worst advice, I guess. Like I said, blindly follow your homeboy just because, you know, you're friends with them.
Wow. Gotcha.
Sorry, I got a little deep there.
No. It's actually dope. No. I know exactly what you're talking about. So no, that's why I kind of took a minute. Like, man, I've heard that one before. So no, that's what that was. Forgive me. I'm sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
Hey, as long as it's not me, I hope we cool, man.
No, it's not you. It's not you.
Gotcha.
I'm just playing. I guess for me, the best piece of advice that I got, it's from another close friend I have, is just keeping an open mind to things. Like, I think for me, I grew up a little, on the conservative side, and, just my family's a little bit more reserved, and we're kind of to ourselves. Okay. So I kind of, took a little bit later in my life to break out of my shell and be a little bit more open to people and responsive. But, some of my friends see it as like, they know that I'm cool in closed circles, but he really approached me one day. It's like, be a little bit more open and accepting to what other people have to offer. And I think that helps with me nowadays, because I'm more willing to step out my comfort zone and really go out there and experience new things. So that's the best piece of advice that I've gotten. And I think the worst piece of advice that I've gotten is to, and I don't really know how to frame it, but it's like to kind of focus too much on one task. And what I mean by that is someone, people always, like some of the bosses that I had in the past kind of see what I do, and I stretch myself too thin, and they wanted me to focus a little bit on my job, a little bit more in college. But I think I've always kind of rejected that kind of thinking, because I knew that wasn't my final goal. Like, I was always having my hands in different pots. Like, I worked 3, 4, 5, like 5 jobs at one point in college. Gotcha. To really extend myself. So, and I think they've definitely opened opportunities to where I'm at right now. So I rejected that advice to really focus on one area, because I knew it just wasn't going to get me to where I had to go to. So and I think that was important for me to be where I'm at today.
And I need to say this though too, because it's a cool segue. So in high school, this man Paul worked at a movie theater called Cinemark for a number of years. Okay. And I don't know if you are anyone here that's familiar with the Dave Chappelle skit, but with Calvin from Wag Arnold's, where he's like the only guy in the hood that has like a job, and it's at McDonald's. We used to call this man Paul Calvin. We're on the high school block, going to school, just chilling. This man's got a job. He's working. Oh man, that's good memories.
I'm actually old enough to remember the original commercial where that came from. I know exactly what you're talking about. So thank you for sharing that. Let me ask you guys this, because I'm pretty sure with your guys' show, Educated Hustle, you probably have a lot of people who come to you about, how to start a company, how to start a business, how to start that path to entrepreneurship. And I bet, sometimes when you kind of give them those nuggets, you kind of get the sense of like, maybe this life isn't for you. So if you would, what do you think is a popular misconception about starting a company or a business?
I think the best people that we have on the show are the people that who aren't really the traditional business people. And what I mean by that, it's just the the people that kind of started their own social media following, like their own websites, their own blogs. They just went out and did it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like the general advice people give. But it really is true that you don't have to have the background of business. You don't have to go to school for business. You just have to really take your passion, cultivate it into something that people want to consume. People are then going to consume it. And then, it's pretty much going to take off from there. And I think, talking to some of the entrepreneurs, they're always just like, yo, I just actually took action and started, making a plan and then executing on that plan. And I think it's really just that simple. A lot of people get overwhelmed by things like startup cost or things like, oh, do I have to register an LLC? I don't know anything about that, so I'm not going to start a business. But I recently opened up my own LLC account, and it took literally 20 minutes. And I was like, oh, this is what people are afraid to do. It takes no time. So like just taking action and doing something, because what's going to happen is either one or two things. You're going to be successful, or you're going to learn from a mistake you made and turn it around and on your next venture. But at least you did it and you started and you have a story to tell.
Absolutely. Paul, you bring up an excellent point, because I know a lot of times people are so afraid of something. It's like the anticipation of the fear is like the worst of it. And then once you get on the opposite side of it, it's like, oh, is that it? Like that's nothing. So no, thank you for sharing that. But go ahead, Emilio. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, man! I always got time for giving my co-host props, man.
Gotcha.
Well, it's interesting you said it, because this alludes to like the best podcast advice I've ever really heard or read is like, no matter the audience, just make sure you have good content.
I hear that.
I think me and Paul, we subscribe to that heavily, and I think the hardest misconception is people really think that you can do this and not have a genuine passion for it, because it's hard. It's really hard. And you can tell yourself, oh, it'll be easy, but if you don't really love it, if you don't really have a knack for it, it's easy to fade away. I mean, I look around at our Twitter, and when we started out, there was a lot of podcasts, but like a lot that we were talked to, and we were like all working together. And now it's pretty quiet out there in the streets. And it's one of those things where, no knock to them, but it's hard. It's hard to keep producing. It's hard to keep maneuvering, because if you're not getting that buzz and that reception, that instant gratification that you have a big mass followers, either to say, why am I doing this? So you have to have the passion. I can safely say that if I didn't have Paul as a co-host, I don't even know if I'd be able to do it, because you need to have, he helps me accountable. He keeps me motivated. He helps me know that I'm in this with somebody, and it's hard to really, do that by yourself. So for podcasts in general, you have to have the passion and genuine ability, because it wears on you. Editing, getting guests, emailing, I got to sit and talk to them. There's so much variables that anyone who's weak-minded can say, you know what, I'm good. So you have to have a genuine passion, because if you don't have that, you're not going to go far.
Understood. And that's an excellent point, Emilio, because a lot of times people think they can just buy a mic, buy a whole bunch of fancy equipment, and just start talking. It really is more behind the scenes, just from a logistical standpoint, that goes on with podcasting. So I appreciate you sharing that for sure.
Yeah, and I definitely want to say to them that helped me out when we were first starting this.
Okay.
People can envision their episode 1. But can you envision your episode 12? Can you envision episode 15? Can you envision your episode 12? Because that's what you're doing it for. You're not doing it to be just a quick 5-episode thing. If you're going to make a podcast series, you're in it for the long haul. So how you got your episode 1, but how are you going to make it episode 30? So that's the big thing you have to think about.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. That's great stuff. Seriously, for real. Let me ask you guys this. Why the name Educated Hustle? Which I absolutely love, by the way.
Yeah, it kind of came together, working together. Me and him both had influence on the name. So we, after we came up with the concept, we were like, basically, we told each other, hey, think about like your top 5 ideas, flip them to people that, you trust, and then we'll come back and reconvene. So I think the 2 names that we kind of came to at the final 2 names, his podcast, or his name was Educated Dividends, and then my podcast name was Hustle Forward.
Okay.
And then so you can kind of see
where
the 2 names kind of coexisted.
Right.
And I forgot, Emilio can kind of help me out. Who decided to combine it?
Yeah, so I'll fill in this part. So we have a friend who in our fraternity, her name is Lakeisha Pinnell. She actually was a guest on our show. And it's funny because I asked her, like, which one do you like better, Hustle Forward or Educated Dividends? And I'm not going to lie, I was kind of feeling Educated Dividends, nobody. She actually came back to me because I asked her, what are you feeling? She was like, how about this? Why about you just take one from each and make it Educated Hustle? And I was like, that's not a bad idea.
Right.
And I went to Paul, and Paul was like, yo, that's the name. It all worked out.
Yeah. So we flipped it back, and everybody kind of, was super excited about it. And, that's still things that we get, like, even like when you hit us up today, and you're like, man, I love the name. And I think that is super, it helps us kind of get guests and they know what to expect, because we have such a good name and such a good following that it kind of ties into what we do really well.
For sure. No, I absolutely love the name. It's like as soon as I heard the name, I was like, I have to subscribe. Like, I have to subscribe to this for sure. So thank you for sharing that story. So with that being said, as Educated Hustle starts to grow and the listeners, this, that, and the other, and you start to get to that million week a download status or whatever, and you got people, got to get Barack Obama on your show, this, that, and the other. And so eventually, you probably want to get to a point where you want to start hiring somebody to do the part where, you have to find guests and this, that, and the other, where Paul and Emilio just have to just show up and just record. So with that being said, what would be an ideal employee once you got to that point? Like, what would that employee have to embody in order for you to bring them on to the Educated Hustle team?
I think from my standpoint, somebody who's like really on top of the scheduling, the organizing, being able to book dates and things of that nature. I think that's always been the people that I partner with, is the really strong organizers, because I'm more of like an idea person and person that kind of gets out there and talk to people. And but I always feel like I lack on the scheduling side and the, making more agenda type days. And I think looking for somebody who's more schedule oriented, who can say, hey, you can't do this on this day because you got this plan, so let's make sure we clear out some time for this. I think just having a little bit more of an organizer, structural person would be somebody I'd be looking to hire.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about having a co-host. I mean, if you guys haven't been able to tell from the interview, Paul does a lot of the inner details that are really important to have for a business. Me, I'm more personality and feeling. So gotcha. I would want somebody who has what Paul's saying, but also just someone who's really a fan of the podcast and the show.
Absolutely.
Will do their best to get guests that they know that we can have a good time to learn something with. Obviously, you can get someone that's going to get you guests, but are they going to get guests that not only showcase, us, but also can the guests showcase what they're about and how they mesh and blend well and how it all happens together. So for me, I want someone who just loves the show and really wants to see the best for it and really wants to do their best to make sure that they have guests that fit the theme and really will make the show go forward and not back.
For sure. And I do kind of notice that that dynamic between you two. Like, one, I can see how one is the personality and the other is kind of like the more, a little bit more reserved. I see the reservedness, conservativeness is still kind of there. I can kind of tell.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I definitely let Emilio handle the jokes and comments.
I'm the talent, but Paul's the brains behind the scenes.
Gotcha. But no, I definitely understand that, because you do need to have that balance, if you will, and I think that's why you guys work as co-hosts. Really, I really do think that. Let me ask you guys. Let me kind of shift a little bit. Given our political climate and things that's happening, not just in the country, but just on the planet as a whole, do entrepreneurs have an obligation to take on or even give commentary on social issues at all?
I know for me personally, I think as long as you have a voice and you have a platform, why not? I mean, this is the day and age where closed mouths don't get fed. If you're not able to go out and represent what you believe in or even talk about things that you don't think are right, then what are you doing? I mean, this is the age where you can do it. I mean, we have a president who's known for just speaking his mind, and it's definitely not always right, but he's
right.
Still he is. So
absolutely.
I really don't feel like this is the day and age where you have to be quiet. I think that there's people now more than ever who feel like how you feel. But on that note too, be careful about what you open when you open Pandora's box. Like make sure that whatever you say, you believe in it to 100%, because it's all right to be wrong. It's all right to have different viewpoints. If you believe in it and you put your, heart and soul to it, you have to respect it because you understand, like, okay, this is what they really believe. But, make a long story short, I think now more than ever, you have to have a voice, you have to be vocal, and you have to be sure that you know for sure what you're saying and what your stance are before you come equipped, especially on the internet, Twitter. It's a bloodbath out there if you come incorrect.
Gotcha.
So when I saw this question in the prep, I had a problem with the word obligation.
Okay.
And so I think as an entrepreneur, your vision is to take your business to where you want it to go. So I think that, do entrepreneurs have an obligation to give commentary on social issues? My answer would be no. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't, or I wouldn't want to be educated on what's going on in society.
For sure.
But I think as an entrepreneur, like, what gets you going is, how do I expand my business? How do I grow it? How do I, become successful? And I think, like my co-host was saying, a lot of people have, their voice, but a lot of people don't want to necessarily jump into the societal issues, because that's not really what grinds their gears. That's not what really gets them motivated to expand their business. So as far as the obligation goes, I don't believe they have it, but at the same time, they should definitely be knowledgeable about what's going on, because especially when hiring somebody or when giving people opportunity, you definitely want to know about inclusion in the workplace. You definitely want to know about giving opportunities to people who don't necessarily get them on a daily basis. So I definitely think you should be aware of what's going on, but you don't necessarily have to comment on everything that's going on if it's not relevant to your business.
Understood. And I appreciate your candor, Paul, because this question was not in the original questions when I first started the show. It kind of came from, like I said, our political climate, this, that, and the other. And we have people who answer all across the spectrum, with that. So, but I really do appreciate your candidness and your honesty. Let me ask you this, guys, when it comes to the Educated Hustle podcast, who is your ideal listener?
Good question. I think the numbers would tell us that it's somebody who's like between ages of like 25 to 34.
Okay.
And usually kind of skews a little bit on the female side, because the people that we bring on usually tend to be like women. Okay. And they're like getting it right now. I mean, women are all over the face of entrepreneurship, social activism. So, I mean, women are killing it nowadays. And I think, all the guests that we brought on and that are super passionate about their business, women seem to be the people that are continuing and not stopping their business from when they started, from when we interviewed them. So, I think, we definitely have a lot of different listeners, different backgrounds, different experiences, but definitely that specific age and gender definitely seems to skew towards our show.
And the crazy thing about it is, like, we actually have people, like, our main age demographic is actually older than that. It's like people in their, I think, 30s and 50s, according to what our tracker says. And we if I had to describe our ideal listener, it'd be what Paul would say. But it's interesting too, because we have an older demographic, and I feel like the older demographic likes our show because we have a pretty positive show. We don't really talk about anything scandalous, anything ratchety, I guess, if you had to say a word. We keep it positive, straightforward, and I think we're really knowledgeable. And I mean, not to knock on young people, but I feel like most young people don't want that. They want, okay, where's the drama? Where's the scandal? Where's the outroar, the outrage? And we don't really provide that. So I think that helps us a lot. And I think that's why the older generation, the 35 to 40s, they vibe with our show so much, because you actually can learn something. We're actually trying to educate and make you want to do something. If you think about it, those are the ages where people really want to be entrepreneurs, because, they've worked a good chunk in their life. They want to break out that chain, and they're trying to figure out where to go. So yeah, I idea listen to what basically what Paul was saying. You know, a young, educated female who really wants that motivation, because we have a lot of female guests, and there's a lot of people they can look up to and really think, okay, how they started. But the reality is, like I said, I think that older female that may be working that job and is on, you know, saved up enough and wants to start her own business, or that older male that wants an idea. So it's a very interesting dynamic, and one that I'm always fascinated to see, just like who we're reaching out to and who we're really affecting and who's really listening.
Absolutely. So let me ask you guys this. Who are your mentors?
I know for me, I have a mentor from college in Alpha Kappa Psi. He goes by the name Kudari Sumaru. He's been my mentor because he's just someone I look up to. You know, he's very cool. He can speak well. He knows how to, you know, eloquate himself well. I don't know that's a word, but we're gonna throw it anyway. But he knows how to.
I know what you meant.
Thank you. He knows how to do it in a way to where I always feel like when I talk to him, I feel like he's coming from a level above me. And I think that's really cool to have a mentor where you feel like, you know, you still got to catch up to him. I think when you feel like you come to your mentor, you know, it's hard to have that relationship, because that's what a mentor is, someone you look up to. Outside of him, it'd be definitely my parents, my role models, because they're people who I want to be. They're who I strive to be. They provide this life for me and my family, and they've always just been encouraging and very just like, whatever you want to do, you'll be a success because we believe in you. We know your success in you. I want to make them proud, but I look up to them because they've done so much, and they both were able to retire. My mom didn't like retirement, so she came back just because she wanted to get a little extra spending money according to her. But it's cool to just know that, you know, they've reached a level where they're able to do all these great things provide. So if I had to really list my mentors right now, it would definitely be those.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have the same mentors as far as my parents go. I mean, you know, they've just been very instrumental in getting my real estate business started. You know, my mom works as a realtor, and she's, you know, done a few, you know, that's kind of an entrepreneurship venture in itself, because you have to start from the bottom. You have to get clients. You have to, you know, kind of make your own schedule, market yourself. So kind of seeing her go through that definitely piqued my interest. I was studying to be a realtor until I kind of got the idea, you know, why sell someone else's house when you can, you know, start to invest and really kind of make more money in the long term. So she kind of, you know, stirred that idea up. And then my dad is like somebody who I didn't realize at the time, but he really kind of shaped me into the person who I am today, because you know, he's like somebody who, he came from Jamaica. So came from Jamaica to Canada. So he was all about venturing out. And then, you know, eventually he made his way to the United States. But, you know, he kind of took a leap of faith as far as kind of coming over to here, not knowing what to expect, and then kind of starting his own thing for himself as far as, you know, working in sales. And he's always been the person to instill that discipline, that, you know, making sure that I'm always on the right path. And, you know, he set some examples for me. Like every day he would make sure I'm in my bed. Every week he would make sure I'm out there helping him cut the yard. And like, those are things that like I didn't realize was kind of getting me ready for, you know, college, where I'm like, all right, I have to make sure I do X things so that I can make sure that I actually have the right discipline and the right ideals to be on my own. So, you know, both of them kind of really influenced me. And now they're both helping me through my first project. Like my dad cuts the yard in my house. My mom manages the contractors while I kind of pay the bills and do the finance side of things. So,
Gotcha.
You know, it's all kind of coming together. And I definitely don't think I would be where I am today without them.
Awesome stuff. That sounds amazing, man. That's cool. That's really cool, for real. Let me ask you guys this. I believe all entrepreneurs have a superpower. What's yours and why?
That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Yeah. Yeah, you go ahead, Paul. You sound like you got something.
You know, like, I don't want to sound lame because it's not really a superpower, but at the end of the day, I think it's really what keeps us alive and keeps us going. And
okay,
and it's really being consistent.
I hear that.
I don't like Emilio alluded to earlier, is like the people that had these big games and big ideas in the beginning and kind of fizzled out is because they stopped being relevant. And we we took like maybe 1 or 2 weeks off here and there, but we've always been dedicated to come back with another episode, to come back with another guest, to even start our own show where it's just me and him talking about the topics of the week, the business topics of the week. So
For sure.
We strive to be very consistent in our grind and our hustle, and that just hasn't stopped, and it won't stop until we feel like there's something better out there. So that's what I think. It's not as glamorous as I think my co-host probably will come up with, but that's something I think is definitely super in its own way.
But I think I'm sorry, Emilio, before you get cranked up there. But no, Paul, I think that's perfect, because a lot of times we have entrepreneurs out there who are not consistent, and they're trying to figure out why they're not, why their business is not taking the next level, this, that, and the other, is mainly because they're not consistent. And that's, believe it or not, is really hard for people. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh man, I was gonna say that sounded like a diss track the way that was starting out.
No, not at all.
No. I meant what Paul was saying, not you. But I would say for me, I just think being able to just say what I say and be my unique self. I think one of the things that I enjoy doing is I like saying stuff that I think, like, almost playing a devil advocate role. Like, I like just being outrageous. I like being able to showcase that, because I feel like the life is too short to just always play it safe. And, there'll be times when I say stuff and I get in trouble, but if you know who I am, it comes from love. And I'm not afraid to look ridiculous. I mean, I'm in work training right now, and I've had moments where I look like the GOAT, and have moments where I look like, why is this dude even got a job here? So,
Gotcha.
it comes both ways. But I think if you're able to, be able to lighten the mood and have the whole room be able to look at you as someone of a sense of relief and joy, you're doing something. And I think that's my superpower, to be able to bring that sense of relief, that funny, that optimistic energy to keep everyone bumping and going until who knows whatever we got to go into.
For sure. So guys, this is the point of the show where, you get to promote anything you got going on. Definitely promote the podcast or anything else you got going on. The floor is yours to do that right now.
I'm going to let Mr. Plug take him away.
There it is.
Oh, man, really? Oh, I thought I had a break for once. No, so everything, of course, is going to be promoted through Educated Hustle. We're available on variety of social media. You can catch us on Snapchat, Educate Hustle. That's all one word, Educate Hustle. There we do snaps with behind-the-scenes videos to let you know how we're doing throughout the week, and of course, get you motivated, get you inspired, and get you out there and working. We're also on Instagram at Educate Hustle Podcast. Once again, that is Educate Hustle Podcast. They post little snapshot, little previews of the episode that came out this week. And as I say and always allude to, if you're really, really nice, you just might get Paul to curate some personal, educated stances about you. You can also follow the pages. Follow us on Facebook at Educate Us. So that's 2 words, Educate Us. So you reached the right page, because you'll see that logo that you guys all know and love. And I'm sure, as Dominic can tell you, we need them reviews. If you have Apple Podcasts, iTunes, do not be afraid to crank it up and hand out some 5 stars. All you got to do is search Educate Us, so 2 words. You'll see the show logo, click on it, scroll down a little bit, hit write a review. Please, please, please. We only ask a couple times, but 5 stars, write a review title, and then, of course, write a review summary. It could be something short and sweet as it's lit, or something long and deep as it's still lit. Either way, please, please, please rate and review the show, because when you do that, you bring more awareness, which brings more guests, which then brings more episodes, which then brings more fun. So please rate and review. Now, if you have not done so already, please follow us on Twitter at Educated_Hustle. Once again, that's Educated_Hustle. There we do tweets, daily interactions, and probably one of the best ways to reach me and Paul, because it comes right to our phone. And last but not least, because I know it's been a mouthful, if you really enjoy what you heard on Dominic's podcast about us, if you really want to get in contact with us, you want to be on the show, you want to know how you collaborate with us, do not hesitate to email us at educatehustlepodcast@gmail.com. And once again, so you don't forget it, because you got to say things twice, educatehustlepodcast@gmail.com.
Well, that was dope.
That's where I need the water right there.
Gotcha.
That's why I call him Mr. Plug, man. He's always selling us, man.
Absolutely. I see he's done this a few times before.
Oh, man, every episode.
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
times.
Absolutely. And Startup Nation, all the credentials, website, social media, all of there in the show notes there for easy access. And also, I want to point out that, look, You have Educated Hustle podcast. You have the Startup Life podcast, but there's no reason that we can't collaborate with one another. And that's one of those things that with young podcasts is like, I'm trying to get up the whole market, this and the other. Nah, forget that. There are ways for us to collaborate one another. And so I really wanted to point that out to Startup Nation that, you guys were really awesome and really cool to be on the show. And I really do appreciate you guys being on the show today. I really do.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for inviting us, man. We're definitely going to have you on the show. So this isn't going to be the last time we talk. So
it's the preview, the prequel, right? And
fair enough.
To say what you were saying, we encourage people to reach out because the podcast game, we get it. We're almost hitting 2 years strong. So
Absolutely.
We know how it is. Like we've been trying to get on all these shows, and we've only really been on about 3 podcasts, which, a 2-year span is not the biggest or most glamorous number, but we've been proud of each and every one of them. So if you're a podcast and you really feel like that we could bring something to you, or we offer something that you're trying to get, or you just want to hit us up for advice or anything, our inbox is open. Like, we've just learned to try and be helpful, because if everyone helps together, we all grow together and we all can win together. And that's the true goal of podcast, to make sure that everyone has a voice.
Absolutely. Everybody, think win-win for sure. For sure. So before we wrap up, man, any parting advice for entrepreneurs out there, aspiring entrepreneurs out there, aspiring podcasters, any last advice?
For me, for people out there that want to start their own podcast, I definitely think you should do the research. Look up every little thing there is about podcasting. There's so many different sites that you can get advice. There's people that's done it before. Don't make the mistake that others do when they want to go at it themselves. They kind of just do it for, the first 3 episodes, and then you never hear it again. If you're going to be serious about the podcast game, plan your episodes in advance. Get as many episodes under your books before you're even ready to launch, and then get some, hype around it, make some clips about it, because that's the only way that you can get off to a great start and to keep that momentum flowing and going.
Yeah. And that's phenomenal advice. I'm gonna go off the advice that maybe you started your podcast and you reached a lull. Just make more content, make more episodes. Don't overthink it. People tend to really think that they need to add more, and they already have a formula. Me and Paul, we always get commented on our podcast, but I'm always thinking like, okay, what can we do to add? So what can we make it better with? How do we get more? But it's like, we already have a good formula. Don't break it if it's not broken. So be sure that you just be consistent, that you put out, that you hit the record button, because that's what it takes to make a podcast. You got to hit that record button, because if wherever you are, the content you produce is going to align with who you are as a person, and people want to see that. That's what they come to hear. So just hit the record, be consistent, and, don't get low or dumb out because you're not getting the results you want. Because like I said earlier, it does not matter the size of your audience. It just matters that you make good content.
Awesome stuff. So that's going to wrap up this episode of the Startup Life. Did you guys enjoy it?
Man, we had a great time, man. Awesome. Once again, thanks again.
I mean, man, I feel like we family now because of all this. Like, you get out of this on him a lot, like an hour and 30. It's like how my cousin had done. That's Dominic from up the block. So, I'm waiting for the cookout invite because you in Memphis, and I know they be cooking in Memphis.
Oh, so yeah, barbecuing out there.
That's true.
Fly us in on startup budget.
Fair enough. For sure. Iron Startup Nation. So here's my final take. When it comes to Paul and Emilio, not only do they have a really great friendship, but you can tell that friendship is a component to their podcast. They do a really good job of not only connecting with their guests, but also giving their target audience very substantive and value-added content for their show. Also, you can really tell how they play off of one another. They have really great chemistry, and I can't wait for them to get to episode 200, seeing as that they just celebrated episode 100. If you want to let us know what you think about our show, have an idea for a show topic, or like to advertise on our show, send us a message on the Startup Life Podcast Facebook page. And while you're there, like and follow our page as well. It's a new way for us to engage with you, Startup Nation, and really grow our community. The link is here in the show notes. Subscribe to the show, as it can now be heard on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, and SoundCloud. If you are listening on iTunes and you find our content valuable, please give us a 5-star rating, as it will help us climb the charts and help more people find our show. And hey, if you have an idea, be about that life, the Startup Life.